find out who's the thing.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Storytime Spotlight. For this week's guest, we have none other than Fantom Freq. How you doing, bud?
Lovely. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. I'm excited to get this interview started. I know there's a lot of good things that we have coming up, a lot of good questions. So for everyone watching, make sure you stay tuned because this is going to be a very good interview. I'm excited for this one. So I always like to start off the questions by asking, where did the artist name come from?
It's a common misconception actually. A lot of people, well, first off, a lot of people actually pronounce it wrong. A lot of people say Fantom Freq. I don't know why people say that, but yeah, sometimes I'll like meet somebody new, like, oh, you're Fantom Freq, right? I'm like, no, Fantom Freq.
No.
But no, there's a common misconception that the name comes from. There's like this movie from the 90s. I think it's Hackers. And one of the characters, his name is Fantom Freq. But honestly, I've never seen that movie before.
Hmm.
The name, it kind of just like came out from the ether because I had switched from a previous name. And I was kind of trying to go with something a little bit like darker, ethereal, and like Fantom Freq just popped up in my head, honestly.
It just kind of stuck. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So at what point did this artist project start?
Well, I started DJing under Fantom Freq, I want to say around 2013, 14.
Hmm.
Um, and I didn't actually start producing and releasing music until about 2017.
Gotcha.
So I've been doing it for almost 10 years now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
quite a bit. And
Well,
it's wild that you mentioned that you first started out DJing first and then
mhm.
you went to production because I feel like a lot of people start off in that route. Very rarely do I ever speak with anyone who's like, no, I started producing first and then I picked up DJing. I feel like when you get the fundamentals of DJing down, then you're kind of like, oh, these songs are so sick. Now I want to make something of my own
Yeah.
so I can play it in my own sets.
Yeah, I think there's definitely like a bottom line motivation there,
Yeah.
Like once you get the hang of DJing, you're like, oh, now I want more. Now I want more, And
Yeah.
then that's kind of like the next step forward.
Right. Yeah,
Actually.
absolutely. So you've been making tons of music, a lot of things in the genre of house music, from bass house to UK garage. What gets you inspired when starting on a blank project?
Most of it's just boredom, honestly, because I can't stick with one genre for too long because honestly, it feels like I'm just like recreating the same song over and over again.
Yeah.
So I like to like spread my wings, do a little bit of breaks here, do a little bit of UK garage, do a little bit of house, just jump all over the place. It just keeps things fresh, and I learn things from like different genres that I can pull back to the next project.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So you've recently just released the Thing EP on Thick Freakness. What
Mhm.
inspired you to make this EP?
So I'm a big film buff and aficionado of just like movies in general. I also have a soft spot for horror movies.
Hmm.
So the thing is based off of my favorite horror movie of all time. And it's kind of funny because it's actually it's actually kind of like a comfort movie for me. So like whenever I feel like really down in the dumps, which is
Yeah.
really odd because it's a very depressing movie.
Oh,
It's a
God.
very, very depressing movie, but it actually brings me a lot of comfort because I've seen it so many times, and it's a really good movie. If you've never seen it, I highly recommend watching The Thing, by John Carpenter. Also like amazing film score by Ennio Morricone too, who's also a legend. But overall, it's just like an amazing film. And like I said, I'm a huge fan of the movie, so I just
Yeah.
decided to make an EP based off of it. And
Great.
yeah,
Okay.
basically a big
Okay.
passion project there.
So could you imagine the music that you made being played in like the background of this film?
I don't know, man. It's a bit heavy, but I mean it's a pretty heavy movie in itself. So maybe like in some of the action scenes.
Right. Okay. All
Yeah.
right. So now you've made such a diverse range of music. You have quite the bit of like ammunition when it comes to music and collaboration. What's been your favorite song that you've made thus far?
Um, I have a lot of favorite songs, but I think the one that I love really the most is actually a collaboration with Eric Mark. And this was off of our album, came out like 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, maybe. Big B Manifesto. The track itself is called Moisture,
Hmm.
but there actually isn't any like No, there actually isn't any kind of vocal on it. It's just like a female vocal that's like hooing and hawing, but it's like a UK garage tune, and it's just like a really like nice flow to it. And it's just like a very every time I listen to that song, like yeah, like I love that. Like it's like yeah, it just gives you like the warm and fuzzies on the inside.
There you go. Is that so?
Yeah,
That's a must have in your set list when you're
yeah,
playing. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Okay. From producing music and going into projects or working on collaboration, how do you fight the writer's block?
There's a lot of things. I mean, I use a lot of different things to kind of help me combat writer's block. I do like daily journaling in the morning. I meditate daily also. The gym is very helpful because a lot of that writer's block basically just comes from a lot of like just like mental garbage up there that you
Yep,
just have to like get rid of before you can get into
absolutely.
like a creative flow.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different tools that I use to kind of, unlock that or just like throw away the mental trash. Like I said, journaling, um, meditation, the gym, um, all sorts of stuff. And like if none of those work and I'm still kind of stuck in a creative rut, I when in doubt, I just collaborate with somebody because then they help me pull myself out of that creative rut. Because a lot of times I get stuck in my same processes. So like I said, like it feels like I'm spinning my wheels and kind of writing the
Yep.
same song over and over again.
Yep.
So I need somebody, sometimes I need outside help to pull me out of that and like teach me some new stuff so then I can get my cylinders burning again, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I always like to think like, you may have a bunch of original tracks that you're just kind of sitting on and working on. You open them back up and like the headspace you're in, you weren't in that headspace when you first started that track. So it kind of
Mhm.
like, as you would say, throws the wrench in it
Mhm.
and kind of stops you from working that. But yeah, journaling, going to the gym, those are all great things. But I feel like when you collaborate with other artists, you kind of get like this one sound that they use, and you're just like get that stink face, that ooh.
Yeah,
You're like,
yeah,
oh, we're just going off of that. Like we're just
yeah,
going off
yeah,
this
yeah,
one little beep boop, and it's just
yeah,
so
yeah, yeah,
it's so perfect. And you're just like, all right, we're gonna roll with the punches with this one.
yeah.
Kind of rolling over to the collab process. So you've collabed with a bunch of artists. You've collabed with Eric Mark, Freefall, Nightblock, Minor, Footwork, and Spacewalk, which, by the way, Illis has been my personal favorite collab that you've done thus far. Walk us through the process of collaborating with these artists.
It's everyone's different. If I had to, pick my favorite like process, I prefer to do in person as opposed to doing like a digital over the internet kind of thing.
10
But
out of 10.
I've
10 out of
all
10 times.
I've done it all different ways. I've done it where I just like stem out something and then send it and then we send it back and forth. I've also done, recently with Chuck Shadow, we've been doing just like Zoom meetups, even though he lives in LA, but sometimes he just doesn't have the opportunity to kind of like sit down.
Yeah.
But like far and above, I love like in person because it's direct feedback. Like I do it a lot with me and Luke, Spacewalk. We do it like all the time. We
Yeah.
probably have like I think we've already released like 3 or 4 tracks. We have like another four that we're just like sitting on right now.
Yeah.
And then Eric Mark. Eric Mark's been like above and beyond like my longest collaborator. We basically have a whole catalog just with us too.
There you go. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I always see you in Spacewalk's Instagram stories where he's just
Yeah.
posting up like the computer
Yeah.
screenplay you guys are working on. And it's just like some spectacular collab that's just waiting for the to bless the ears of the listeners.
Yeah.
From the range of people that you've worked with in the future, who is someone that would be your dream collaborator?
Oof. And I know I gave you this question too. That's a hard question. uh, uh, um, honestly, a dream collaborator. Somebody who I always used to play in like my sets almost all the time was Jay Robinson, and that's like that kind of still sticks with
Oh,
me. Jay
yes.
Robinson, yeah. And if not Jay Robinson, I mean somebody else who I always play in my sets is MPH. So either one of the two.
There you go. Those are both
Yeah.
solid people who I believe they're all like on night base too.
Yeah.
Both night
Yeah.
based artists, and they're coming out with some fantastic music. When you mentioned Jay Robinson, when I was first like putting like getting put onto shows, Jay Robinson was in my track list for the night. So it's
Yeah.
crazy that you mentioned that. It's like, yeah, he has some solid tunes for
Yeah,
sure.
for sure.
So with your artist project, what are some of your long-term goals?
Well, I mean, I've kind of put some of that into effect already because like starting the label was, a long time, dream of mine because I mean, I figure it's, I'd rather be making music and doing something that I love with also like friends and people around me that I also enjoy being around. So
Right.
that was part of basically the idea behind the label. And that's part of it. That was part of my long-term goal. And I know like the more I do it, the bigger it's gonna grow. Just like you, like we were talking about earlier, you know. I mean, but another long-term goal, I mean, I think eventually, if I don't because I think if I don't end up like continuing with the whole electronic route, I've always wanted to do like movie scoring and stuff because, like I said, I love movies. I
Yeah.
would I would love to do that because I see a lot of artists who do their solo route end up doing a lot of movies too. So
Yeah,
I
and
would enjoy
when you
that.
mean like the like the movie route, are you talking like the soundtrack, or are you talking like the creepy noises when it comes to like the thriller, psycho,
No,
night behind the
I'm
scene?
talking more along the lines of like scoring. Yeah,
Okay, okay.
yeah,
All right, not too
yeah.
bad. So now over this past year in 2022, you got to play not only at the Boombox Art Car in EDC Las Vegas, but you also got to play at Countdown in the Insidia Dome. Walk us through this experience playing at these festivals.
It's fun, man. It's just the overall. I mean, I'm sure you've been to like Insomniac festivals before.
Oh
It's just
yeah.
like it's just a massive like spectacle. Like basically, it's just like fireworks all over the place, like massive like Ferris wheels and all sorts of just like shenanigans. But it's overall it's like a really enjoyable experience. Like when I went to EDC, because this was my second EDC I played. I brought my brother out and he had never been to EDC and he was just having
Mm,
a blast of a time too.
yeah.
Um, and like one of the best parts is the artist area. So basically it's like all you can drink. So it just becomes a shit show too.
You're not the only person who's told me that. I met with a couple artists who had those passes, and they're like, "You want to drink? I'll just go in the artist area,
Yeah.
something." Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome. And what I thought was so cool about the set that you played at Countdown, seeing those pictures, like it looked like the tent was on fire, like the top
Yeah.
part was on fire, the DJ deck was on fire, like it looks
Yeah.
super cool. Like, how was that experience to have like an actual stage where it kind of like felt chaotic, but like obviously not, but just having like the awe factor.
No, it was insane. Like, because I had never seen anything like that before. It was like a big like geodesic dome. So it was like kind of like open air a little bit, but there were sections where they had like this flame retardant material and there was like flamethrowers pointing downward. So like it wouldn't hit anybody, but it was basically causing like this like waterfall effect with fire, which was
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah. It
Um,
looks so sick.
yeah, and then there's basically on the stage, was basically like flames right in front of me, and then there's flamethrowers behind me. So every time like a drop would hit, like whoever was making like messing around with the pyrotechnics, that would basically instead of like those CO2 cannons, it would basically just be flamethrowers shooting out the drops. It was
That
insane.
is so sick.
Yeah, and then I was like wearing a onesie too, so like halfway through the set, I was like, "That's enough of this." Like, it's way too
Yeah.
hot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I could imagine. You have such a resume when it comes to releases. You've released on such labels like In Rotation, Bite This, Country Club Disco, Diverge, Gold Digger, D&D Rex, Boathouse, many more. So when sending your music to these labels, what are you sending besides the link to your music?
Well, typically I will send a playlist because I'm usually writing like tons of music and I'm always sitting on probably like anywhere from like 6 to a dozen tracks. But I only send maybe like 4 to 6 tops to a label. And it's usually the ones that I feel like would fit them the best.
Hmm.
And then in my email, I keep it very short and sweet. It's like, oh, if I know the person already, if I have the direct contact, then I'll acknowledge them as such. If not, I just acknowledge the label. And then I just say like, oh, I have these tracks here that I feel would fit your label. At your nearest convenience, like listen to at your nearest convenience, please listen. And then I send the link, and then below that I put downloads are enabled if required. And I'd love to hear back from you, blah blah blah. That's really it's short and sweet. I don't put anything else into it really.
Yeah. The key
Um,
words there were short and sweet.
yeah,
Short and sweet gets the job done. And I
yeah,
feel like it gets it gets a little bit much when they send like who they've opened up for, what
Yeah, see,
they played at.
it's an immediate turn off, honestly.
and
Yeah.
it kind of brings me into my next question. And it's like, so not only are you a producer and a DJ, but you're also the founder of Thick Freakness Records. What made you decide to start the label?
I think I kind of mentioned it earlier, but I mean, I think the motivating factor was COVID because there wasn't a whole lot going on, especially with shows and stuff.
Yeah.
And me and Eric, we were writing like a ton. We had, at least like a dozen tracks. And out of those dozen tracks, I was like, yo, like why don't we put together an album? And he was like, that's crazy. And I was like, yeah, I know. I was like, let's try it. So we ended up doing it. And then I was like, I don't, I really doubt that anyone's gonna want to sign an album. So I was like, screw it, I'll start a label and just release it myself.
Yeah.
And that was basically the motivating factor of it is like, I have all at any given time, I'm sitting on a ton of music that's not going anywhere. I might as well just release it myself.
Yeah.
So that's basically was the biggest motivating factor for the label was.
Mm.
But now that I have the resources, I can also start releasing other people's music too. So I've been trying to do that as well as, like releasing compilations and stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't really take like unsolicited demos just yet because I'm still trying to build like a bigger promotional platform, which I'm still actively working on, like my Spotify and SoundCloud
Yep.
resources. So instead, I take more of a curation route. So I actually reach out to people that I want to be on the label and see if they have music to actually, contribute.
Okay. So what are some do's and don'ts when you're looking over these demo submissions?
Um, well, I think it's different. If I was taking unsolicited demos, the do's and don'ts would mostly be like, I mean, did you actually listen to the label? Are you submitting music that you think is going to fit? Because I actually have been receiving some random unsolicited demos and they don't fit my label or sound at all.
Mm.
So I just give them like a kind like, oh no, this isn't for us. But like I would say that for anybody who's submitting to labels is to like actually give the label a listen to kind of see if your sound will fit. If you don't think it'll fit, then don't even bother sending it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. A big don't in my eyes, and I know people might not think that a lot of people look at this, and I know you're not really reviewing unsolicited demos,
Mhm.
but a big thing for me and when I'm reviewing demos is don't say that I've been following your label for a long time and I click your
Mhm.
page and you're not even following us. At that
No.
point, I can promise you,
That's
it doesn't matter
hilarious,
how good
dude.
the song is, we're already not on we're not even on a good relationship term at this
Yeah.
point in
Because
time
no,
because you're a liar. You're lying
yeah,
to me.
that's
Why are you
being completely
lying?
dishonest. That's being completely dishonest. Yeah.
And it happens so frequently, and a lot of people may not think that like you look at that type of thing, but
Yeah.
like you were mentioning before, how you're just you send the link multiple tracks, not just one, and what you think fits best with that label, and maybe a short paragraph about your song and things along like,
Mhm.
hey, let me know how you feel about the track, get back to me,
Mhm.
things along those, like I feel like that's the most perfect demo submission. Other than that, don't just send the link. Like if you
Yeah.
just send the link, look, you're not putting in the effort. Why are we going to put the effort into you and
Yeah. Yeah. For
with your
sure.
music?
Yeah.
So what's coming next with your label?
So I just released a single like last week. Yeah, I released a single last week. Everything just kind of muddles together now.
Yep.
Yeah, I just released a single last week. But I'm also releasing a compilation at the end of the month. And on that is gonna be myself, Chuck Shadow, Foxed, Broshi, Shapeshifter, Dice, and Dashi. So yeah, so yeah,
Oh,
yeah. It's the first time
okay.
releasing a compilation in spring too. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And the thing I love the most about those names that you just mentioned are all people who like I would like to say are up and comers in the scene as well. Every one
yeah,
of
for
these
sure.
artists are grinding it out. They're not just like, oh, this is my first track out, my second track out. It's
Mhm.
like, no, they have a resume of tracks and shows they've
Yeah,
played, and that's awesome. I'm super excited to hear that. You said that's coming out the end of this month.
yeah. So March 31st.
March 31st. Well, you guys hear it here first. March 31st is when that compilation is coming out. So, Who are some artists we should keep our eye out on?
Um, I would say it's Spacewalk for sure, dude. Because like anytime honestly,
Hands down, hands down.
anytime I anytime I collaborate with him, I always learn something. And this guy's younger than me too. He's probably like, I want to say just turned 24, 25.
Yeah,
But like seriously, it blows my mind. He always teaches me something new, and it's like one of the biggest reasons I enjoy collaborating with him so much, because like we just like pound through tracks for like so easily, just
yeah,
like back and forth. It's amazing.
yeah.
Yeah.
He I got to hang out with him a couple of times. I actually booked him for the Storytime takeover in San Diego and then
Um,
brought him out here to Las Vegas. And the thing about him and when I mentioned it with him is he's like when people send me tracks to collab, I just take over and like nerd out on the track. And he's like he's just so dialed in and just like the sound design and just the everything about this guy is just like 10 out of 10. And I'm so happy that you said he's someone to keep an eye on. I always preach that this guy is just someone to definitely keep an eye out on.
yeah.
So Spacewalk, if you're hearing this, you deserve it. Very, very creditable. You're awesome, man. Is there anything that you would like to promote, or is there anyone that you would like to give a shout out to?
I mean, well, first, yeah, promote. Yeah, we're playing Space Taco. We're doing a like a label takeover at the end of the month. It's basically going to be a release party for that compilation. So it'll be me, Chuck Shadow, Shapeshifter, at Space Taco in Pomona. Space Taco Tuesdays.
Yep.
That's the 28th. And then yeah, the compilation comes out the 31st. It's called Rebirth Volume 1. Yeah, it's the whole theme of it is like, it's gonna be spring, so it's basically like a rebirth. And the artwork is actually really cool too. It's like a death's head moth. I don't know if you're familiar, but it's a really cool, the artwork looks fucking amazing. I love it.
Good.
Anyways, and then as far as giving shout outs, yeah, dude, I want to give shout outs to everybody. That's, everybody that I worked with, Eric, Mark, Foxed, Spacewalk. I mean, I give it a shout out to you too, man. Like,
Let's go. Let's go.
yeah, man. And anybody who supports the music and who's been supporting the label too, man.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And we are going to tag everything down below in the description. So you make sure not to only follow him, but follow the label. Keep your eye out for on the upcoming releases that are coming out, not only from him, but from his label as well. Once again, my name is Matt Campbell, and we're here with Fantom Freq. And I'm super excited that you guys stay tuned for this full episode of another Storytime Spotlight.